そこに英語の表示がないともう大変なことになるよね。
Welcome to the Lazy Fluency podcast, where we have casual conversations switching between English and Japanese so that you can learn from and with us along the way. I'm Joey.
And I'm Yami.
And the topic of the day is tourism. Before we get into that, make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and drop a review to a platform you're listening on. We appreciate the support. And with that out of the way, tourism. Have you ever visited another country? Congratulations, you officially have been a tourist. Shame on you. You made wherever you went marginally worse. Or did you? Today we're talking about tourism, and this was also another episode inspired by me currently being in Panama and going to a location called the Old City. It's Casco Viejo in Panama. Obviously, I don't think you've been, but I was talking with my brother when we were eating at a restaurant, when we were pondering on eating on a restaurant, and he basically remarked that although he likes the, it's very walkable, even though there are way too many cars, and there's other stuff he likes about it, the area just doesn't feel authentic because all the stuff that exists are there for tourists. It's not just that there are like too many tourists or anything like that, because sometimes you do see Panamanians or whatever walking around. But the thing is, like, fundamentally, all the amenities, all the stuff there, like the whole city, because it's one of the places that is like most interesting about Panama City, there's a lot of people there, and that's completely shaped the landscape of how it looks and like what kind of shops are there and who everything is catered to. And so this got me thinking about the effects of tourism and like the roles of tourism and whether or not tourism in general is really a good or bad thing, and there's many other effects. The other place that Japan has this problem is, I think the most notable is Kyoto, with like I think recently us mentioning like Kyoto having a way too many people problem.
なんかね、
and so
多すぎて困ってるみたいな。聞いた。
Yeah. And I was wondering, what your thoughts are before we jump into the general dive on tourism. But I guess what I would say is, personally, have you had any experiences being around anywhere that, like, where you're a tourist when you're traveling or in Japan? What are your general impression of tourists? So not as a tourist, but of other tourists when you are in Japan.
なんだろう。やっぱり東京を例にとると、東京っていろんな観光名所がありますと。で、やっぱり、外国人に人気な場所、例えば浅草、渋谷、原宿、新宿とかね、そういうところにすごいなんか集まってるなっていうのはあるし、あと、なんだろう。例えば、浅草が一番最近行った、観光地なんだけど、浅草行くと、日本の人たちはさ、商売だから、人力車とかね、人力車の、なんていうの？男の人？
rickshaw.
ん？
Yeah. Yeah,
そ
no
う。
good.
運転じゃないか。運ぶ人？する人とかは結構なんかお客さんを誘ったりとかね。あと、やっぱり中見世通りだっけ？浅草寺に入る直線のところの商店街みたいな。あそこはやっぱり、その観光客向けのお土産っていうのを売ってて、ちょっとなんて言うんだろうね。なんか
The tax-free thing?
え？
Like all the tax-free shops in Japan?
タックスフリーもあるし、タックスフリーじゃないのもあるし、なんていうの、日本のお土産みたいなショップがいっぱい並んでんだけどさ、団子屋とかね、お茶屋とか。なんか、ちょっと悪いく言うとチーズィーっていうか、なんていうの、もう、I love Japan みたいな、なんかそういうの売ってたり、それもニューヨーク行った時に、もう同じことなんだけど、I love New York とかね、結構売ってたりとか。で、ツーリズムに関して何か思うことは、なんだろうね。街の活性化になっていいんじゃない？だけどそこら辺に住む人にとっては多分、なんだろうね。普段の通勤する場所がさ、いろんな観光客の人で、溢れ返ってて、その分混むじゃん、道とか、歩道とかね。それだとちょっと迷惑になるのかなとか思いつつ、人によって考え方は変わるとは思うね。
I mean, I kind of see this, and I'm not really a big Star Wars fan either way, but when I think of this, how I kind of view, or my conflicting feelings towards tourism, is there's like a new run of Star Wars, or you can think of pretty much every big blockbuster movie, where for a movie to succeed now, it basically needs to have some element of, hey, remember that thing that you saw before? Remember this? This is like that. Remember, this is like this. It isn't that, but it's like that. Remember, I'm reminding you of things from the past that used to be that way. And I feel like tourist spots have this problem where there's something that was great that attracted people to them. But now, like the word that people use is tourist trap. And generally, when I hear tourist trap, it's fundamentally saying, yeah, this is a really cool spot, but it is completely overrun by tourists to the point where it's no longer cool. Not because anything intrinsically about the location isn't cool, but because there's so many people there that the location itself has fundamentally changed because of people being there. So the access to people kind of ruins the location. Like, for example, I think of like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Do you know the Leaning Tower of Pisa? It's just
Pisa
like
no chateau in Japanese.
no chateau. Okay, yes, exactly. Or I cannot think. I've never been, but I cannot think of that place without just imagining people going. I'm doing the thing where you like hold up this
so classic. Oh my god, so nigga.
Yeah. And that just makes me think like, did we just ruin? Is that place like forever? At least for as long as it's popular. Like, there's a thing where if it continues to be popular as a place that people want to go to, which historical significance probably will, it can never really reclaim its place as an authentic location that is actually intrinsically cool. And I feel like there's a problem or balance that you have where it's like the more interesting or reputable or noteworthy whatever a place becomes, at some point it hits a tipping point and it becomes unbearable and it loses its essence fundamentally and it gets replaced with tourism. Another one that might be in this category at this point is the Eiffel Tower. Or like maybe
知ったことあるよ。
Go ahead. So how was your experience? I'm wondering in France. You've been to the Eiffel Tower. France is the most touristed place in the world.
あ、そう、
Did you
そう
feel
なの
like it
一
was
番
overrun with tourists?
一番なんだ。
Yeah. Yeah.
なんか、なんて言うんだろうね。ちょっと、景色はすごい綺麗だったよ。なんか、そのシャンパンアワーって言って、なんかね、時間が決まってて6時だったっけな。なんか、その、エッフェル塔が、その、なんていうの、シャンパンつってなんか、ライトアップが、キラキラってなるのが、なんか、決まった時間であって、それ見に行って、それめちゃめちゃ綺麗だったんだよ。で、上には登ってないんだけど、やっぱりそのエッフェル塔の下のあたりとかっていうのは、なんて言うんだろう。観光客の人用に、なんか、いろんな小物あるじゃん。エッフェル塔のちっちゃいキーチェーンとか、なんかフランスみたいな感じの、ちっちゃい小物とか売ってる、なんて言うんだろうね。地面にちょっとバーっと置いてある感じのお土産屋さんっていうのかな。それがずらーっとあって、あ、観光地だな、みたいな。は思ったり、あと人は多かったね。なんて言うんだろう。で、そこでちょっと思ったのがね、これ、建物見るだけで写真撮るだけで終わりじゃんと思って。なんでこれが楽しいって思うんだろうっていうのは思った。その旅行として。
Yeah, and something else I was thinking about was that how for a lot of these like tourist destinations, it's not only that like all the amenities end up being towards the tourists, it's that they start also getting like I guess talking about the language where like everything will be catered towards English specifically because it's like the most spoken languages. Obviously they might have some other language support and things like that. But for me, I think I mentioned before that one of the things I like the most about Japan is the fact that nobody really speaks English. And I know they're trying to like put more stuff to help people out who obviously don't speak Japanese. But to me, like the whole point when I think of traveling Japan is being in Japan, not being in a location that is catering to Americans. And so I've always wondered like, but at the same time, I know a lot of people aren't like me and they're just like, I want English. I get scared when I hear Asian language. And so I'm assuming the reason they do that obviously is to make it easier for tourists. But to me, that ease of tourism is a turnoff completely. And so I'm wondering how you feel about, go ahead.
今の話からすると、ジョイは、なんだろう、日本語でなんていうの、 すべての表示されててほしいってこと。英語のサポートいらない。
Yes. I don't want any English support. Correct. If a country naturally does not use English, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it anywhere. I want to be completely. And I want to go to a country. You know what I'm saying? If they don't use English, if no actual person in the country uses English, it's not like a secondary language
まあ確
or
かに
national
ね。
language or anything. I want 0%. I don't want to see a single Roman character in the entire location. I want to be
I
lost
mean,
and
それは、
confused.
なんて言うんだろう。失礼。なんていうの、ある程度のその日本語力がある人にとっては、まあそれがね、新しい日本語に出会うきっかけでもあるし、あとなんだろう、その日本語しか使われてないってなると、やっぱり、この国にいるんだなっていう実感があるね。まあなんでそれは、なんていうの、その、ある程度ベースがある人に関してで、多分ベースが全くない人だと、多分ね、泣いて帰ることになると思うよ。もう、Japan was the worst country to visit みたいな。
But why? So here's my thing. That's like, to me, that's the point. Even if I didn't know any Japanese, that's how I like wanted it before I knew any Japanese. Like,
そう。
I fundamentally do not understand the viewpoint other than like you get stuck traveling with somebody because you don't want to go to somewhere, or it's like it's your grandma coming with you and she's like, and it's a family trip and she doesn't really want to go to Japan, but you're bringing her along and then she gets confused. Like, I can understand why some people like that would want to, but in terms of somebody actually traveling on their own dime to go to a country that presumably they want to go to, that's one of the things about, like, you know, my main pitch to people when they're learning Japanese, it's like, it's a language that you can actually learn and use. There's so many other languages where people fundamentally just don't, like, whether it be because they speak better English than you do, or they cater so heavily to tourists that you go there and you almost get put off of ever using your English or your other language that you're studying because there's so many accommodations for English. Or like I've heard in France where they're so apparently critical of people's speaking abilities that they'll basically shut you down completely if you try to speak French because they have their noses up their ass of their own language. I'm not sure if you've ever knew any French, but that's my impression of the French speaking population. And I don't like saying that as brutal as I do, but I've heard over and over and over again from Americans, non-Americans, Asian people, like apparently the French, they're like, we'd rather cater you to in English than ever attempt to communicate with you in French.
失礼。なんかそのことに関してさ、ちょっと思うのが、なんて言うんだろう。それ日本はさ、やっぱり治安がいいっていうか、あんまり犯罪とか起きないじゃん。で、その日本語が使えなくても、まあ人は親切だから、なんか騙したりとかあんまりないじゃん。そのお店に行ってお釣りが正しくないとか、タクシーに乗って変なところ連れて行かれないとかさ。まあ日本はそれは担保されてるじゃん。だいたいちゃんとしてると。でもそれをなんかアメリカとかね、フランスとか、まあいろんな国に行った時によく聞くのが、そのやっぱり英語が喋れない人は騙されてお金を取られるとか結構あるっぽいんだよ。その日本人だからとか、その結構なんか思われて、そう。
You're still, I feel like you being able to communicate with English is just giving yourself the illusion that you're not being tricked, where the real thing that's happening is anytime you go to a tax-free shop, anytime you're on Tokyo and just being honest, an African dude who's being paid, like, you know what I'm saying, they've been hired and to stand the streets in Tokyo, they come up to you and ask you to go to a shop, you're going to get ripped off, right? Like, and they're going to do it to you in English, and that makes you think you're not getting ripped off, but you're getting ripped off. You know what I'm talking about? Like all those...
例えばさ、タクシー呼びますと。で、英語喋れないってなるとさ、私の場合ね、私が、まあ、例えばだけど、じゃあフランスでいいや。フランスに行きますと。で、大体そこで起こるのが、日本人ってバレると、バレるっていうか、なんて言うんだろう。そう、英語が喋れないとかなると、あの人たち悪い人たちはこの人なら騙しても何も言われないし、なんか簡単に騙せるなって思って普通の値段よりもずっと高くしたり、変なところ連れてってこれだけ運転したからこれだけちょうだいみたいなとかに。
That's not a language problem though. And if they speak, those people are more likely to speak English. Like, my point is, you're not escaping that from speaking English. You're actually more likely. Like, this is what I noticed in Panama. Even though like I look Panamanian to some degree, obviously I have that other. It's I look different in some ways, but like I look fairly Panamanian. There's a whole bunch of cues, and thinking that language is the cue that's giving you away is just like maybe something that an American who hasn't learned, like, you know, been anywhere else might think. But there's so many cues: the clothes you're wearing, your posturing, how you know, when we're taking the trains in New York, like I'm an American, right? Like small things, like the fact that we were reading the signs to try to figure out where we were going, the fact that you're on your phone. Like, if people want to take advantage of you, they can. And I think that when there are services explicitly in English for you, those to me are a just direct signal you are about to get ripped off, you're about to get taken advantage of. No, it's not going to be terrible. And
なんて言うんだろう。その人とコミュニケーションを取れる、何かしらの言語があれば、言い返せるじゃん。例えば、これが違うと思うんだけど、どうなんだよって。
No, but things you won't know, right? So, like, especially with, like, upcharging, where you don't know the prices of the local foods or amenities or where you're going, you know, for a lot of the just general, especially if you can't read the language. You're going to get upcharged. It just is a thing. There's just no, unless you're somebody who's culturally competent, you just don't know what to compare it to. You haven't lived there. And I'm saying the language part just is a trap. You think you're not being taken advantage. But to take it back into like the effects that tourism have on locations and I guess how you can be a tourist or I guess tourism in places that aren't ruined by tourism, I guess I would say my best example I can think of is what they're called. Is it Seire? No, it's like anime pilgrimage. Is it Seire?
聖地巡回みたいな。
Yeah, 聖地巡回。
巡礼わかんないけど。
Yeah, 巡礼, which is like basically there are a lot of different scenes and locations in anime based on relocations. Just I don't know, because Japan likes talking about locations in Japan, and you can actually visit a lot of these places in real life because they're just normal streets or normal locations, just as any other street or location. And the thing is, the thing that I like about these is because they're just actual streets that pre-existed. Sometimes, you know, they will get a little more, you could say, hype after the fact, and somebody will put up a sign or something and say, "This is the special spot in this." But generally speaking, they're in the middle of, like, you know, communities and residential areas where like development of that nature is kind of prohibited, or so you can't really ever get to the point where it's a huge thing. And mainly, like, for example, I went to the Kimi no Nawa, the Your Name movie. There's a staircase at the end of the movie, and you can actually visit that staircase in person. And it's a little surreal seeing there's just nobody there. I was just midday walking with some of my friends, and we were the only people there. And we're still in Tokyo, and you're like, wow, this is what at the time was the biggest, like, highest grossing animated Japanese film of all time. But we were the only people there, and being able to actually experience a place just a street, and not have to have a bunch of like people promotion, like, you know, advertising, trying to sell us stuff, and in my opinion, at least to some degree, getting some authentic experience, just observing this like street or riding that was a really cool experience. And so I'm basically trying, I don't know if you ever thought about this, like how you can fundamentally fix the tourist problem. One of the ways I've seen it done with things that are in high demand is like basically in advanced reservations to go somewhere. Because the other way that I don't like that's done is like you just pay a lot of money. But I think Japan handles it really good with like the Studio Ghibli Museum, where basically if you want to go to the Studio Ghibli Museum, you have to like reserve like a month plus in advance, right?
それは普通に混んでるからじゃないの？いっぱい、多分コロナが明けて、めちゃめちゃ
before Corona in 2018 when I went to Japan.
あ、そうなんだ。すごい人気だから。
Yeah. Yep, it's just super popular. And I think that's a really great, I honestly think they should do that in way more locations. I think a lot of, because like I don't really know what else you can do. If somewhere is that popular, you just have to say.
あれじゃん、屋内のなんかミュージアムとかだったらそういうのできるけどさ、お寺とかさ、その屋外の場所は難しくないか？
Why not? Well, why is it difficult? If you have a lot of demand, then you can you can control that demand. There's a lot of ways to do it. I just think like you obviously depends on the location about whether you need to do it or not don't need to do it. But I just think that those locations just become officially screwed. It's just like once you get above a certain population and they're all doing tourist stuff, you need to figure something out. Whether that be less people get to enjoy the thing. I think fair, because like as long as you have a system that's not based around who has more money, like I think the queue, like just give advantage people to people who plan ahead of time. Like you have to make a reservation a month or two, however the popular location is. And just so that when you actually get to experience it, you can get some degree of like authentic experience of location. I actually think I was listening to a video where they were trying to do something like this, where like if you had a passport outside the like of not the country, I don't remember where this was, but I believe it was Europe, then there was a different process that you like had to take to actually enter somewhere. And I don't know if this seems like, I don't know, xenophobic or what the take would be, or if this is a controversial take, but to me, you just ruin locations. Like they're places that should be cool, but then people skip them and call them tourist traps.
さっきさ言ってたのさ、日本語だけにしてほしいみたいな言ってたじゃん、さっき。でさ、それを
Oh no, I didn't say that necessarily. Japan is a country that's trying to learn, you know what I'm saying? Learn English for global reasons.
まあそれもあるし、でもさっきはそのオーセンティックエクスペリエンスをなんか保つために日本語だけにしてほしいみたいに言ってたじゃん。
Yeah, well, I don't like to be placated. Like I'm saying, if it's the case that if it wasn't for tourism, this place wouldn't have a bunch of English signs, then I don't want English signs.
なんていうんだろう。それを多分するとさ、一番しちゃいけないなって思う場所っていうのが、駅とか、なんていうんだろう、バス、電車、あと、飛行機とかね、そういうトランスポーテーションで、英語の表示がないってなると、かなりのダメージになると思うんだよね。なんでかっていうとさ、もし、日本語だけだったらそうするよ。そうするとさ、今の時代 Google マップとかさ、いろいろあってさ、この電車乗ればいいんだとかわかるけれどもさ、Google で調べました。で、その後に駅に行きましたと。で、どの電車に乗ればいいかわかんないってなるじゃん。もし英語の表示がなかったらさ、もう日本ってさ、やっぱり、トランスポーテーションがすごく発達してるからこそ、すごく入り組んでて複雑だから、どの電車乗ればいいかわかんないっていうのは絶対起きると思うから、やっぱりそれこそ、そこに英語の表示がないと、もう大変なことになるよねっていう。
Well, here's the thing. Basically, you're saying it just bring up the level of expectations of somebody having to go to Japan, which would probably lower the tourism. And the thing is, the country itself doesn't want to do that, and that's why they're introducing English. But what I'm saying is, I'm kind of fine with increasing the barrier to entry to places that, to places that would be in high demand if they had English, but if they don't have English, people are just like, it's too much effort. But the thing is, obviously, from the country's perspective, where they really want money, that's why they're not doing that. And so I understand why it is the current reality. And it's not like, it's hard for me to say, like, if I could push a button, if I would change it, because I do understand the economic reality of places like Kyoto. Somehow Kyoto is managing to go bankrupt despite it's the most, like, one of the most popular tourist locations in the world. But at the same time, I have my inner desire, which I don't know if I want to be manifested, which, like, yeah, I'm totally okay with people having to learn a degree of Japanese before having to go to Japan and not just being placated to with English or whatever other language.
困るやつ、もう一つあるわ。例えばさ、
Okay, go ahead.
観光地といえば、お寺とかね。歴史的な建物ありますと。博物館でもいいや。ミュージアムとか。そういう時にさ、やっぱり、そういうとこに行くってことは、建物見る。プラスで多分歴史とかね、そういう勉強したいみたいな気持ちがあるから行く人も多いと思うんだよ。で、そこでさ、
hold up. There's still plenty of resources on. I'm not preventing other people from creating resources in their language about a different culture. You're right. Like obviously, there's still a bunch of YouTube channels about Japan, like people in Japan giving their experiences. And those, in my opinion, like
でも、みんながみんなさ、ネット使って、なんていうんだろう、情報を得ることはできないじゃん。例えば、オードって、まあそう、ご年配の人たちは、やっぱり携帯使うの難しいとかさ、やっぱそのところで見てなんか勉強したいとかってもあるんじゃない？多分あると思うんだよ。
Yeah, that's fine. So the thing is, I'm aware my desires are a lot of people would be very against them. For example, there's a video that I recorded like, a while ago, and I'm let's see if I decide to end up uploading it. But there's an adjacent problem where I feel like, here's my take. If there's a hiking location, so in Japan, they have a lot of these lifts to go to the top of hikes. Mm-hmm. My thing is like, if you need to take a lift to go to the hike, whether it's a disability, whether it's because you're too old and you couldn't otherwise hike, that's the way it is. And if I get injured, and I'm not able to hike anymore, I've accepted the fact that I don't deserve to get to the top of the hike. Because the thing is, when you build a lift to go to the top of what would be nature, and I know that humans have messed with nature and it's hard to define what nature is even currently nowadays, but I do believe there's a difference between having a basically ski lift at the top of a hike with a bunch of small shops for water because people get thirsty and a bathroom at the top as well. I think that fundamentally impacts the quality of the area to the point that I think it's worth taking the L and being like, you know what? Some things, yeah, there's no way. If you're too old to do it, you're disabled to do it, or you're not fit enough to do it, then that's part of, it's just like, it is what it is. That's what it means to maintain some degree of like natural environment. And so I know that is a controversial take, but I really do feel it. I really do feel like places are fundamentally destroyed by providing amenities. And let me be clear, I'm not saying this should be applied to like the majority of things. I think having what's it called? Obviously disabilities or stuff, or being considerate of all the elderly, especially like fundamental transportation. Like all this is great. I'm talking about tourism, and my little side about hiking is my belief in like the point of having nature and hiking in general is I feel like the vast majority of places should be trying to maintain whatever degree of integrity and whatever notion of nature that we have. And accommodations can fundamentally ruin that. Like one of the hikes I went to, especially in Japan. Go ahead.
だってさ、やっぱり旅行行くってことはさ、その国とかその地域の雰囲気を味わうために行ってるもんでもあるからさ、例えば私が、アメリカ行きますと。で、そこでさ、なんて言うんだろう。日本のお店行ったりとか、日本人がやってる日本食のお店に行くとかさ、それって日本でも別に経験できるっていうか、それ毎日やってることだからさ、それをしに、その国に行ってるわけじゃないからさ、確かにそういう、なんて言うんだろうね、雰囲気、経験を、なんだろう、その邪魔しない程度に、ね、そのサポートみたいなあってほしいよねっていう。その言語的なサポート、そうそうそう。
One of the things, maybe the other way, because I don't want to piss too many people off here, because I know some people they'll be like, oh, somebody in my family is disability, my family's elderly, or whatever. I'm elderly, I have a disability. You're saying I shouldn't be able to experience something? Well, everything, no. I don't think anybody can, experience. There's trade-offs for everything, and I think for the majority of things, especially anything for essential life, and to that capacity, there should be some way to do it if you have some, disability or other thing. But I'm talking about. I do think that you have to acknowledge that when you do make something like you shift or something or put a lift in somewhere, you are fundamentally affecting and changing the thing. And I think one of my examples of it is there's a game series called Dark Souls. It's very well known. Have you heard of Dark Souls?
Nah.
Oh, well, it's a very popular game series. It's known for being very difficult. And there's this discussion about it, which is like, oh, should it have a difficulty setting? Because a lot of games have difficulty settings where you have for different kinds of people, and I think that's great. But I think there is a thing to having an experience which only has one way to experience it, and everybody who's done it has gone through the same things and they're having the same experience. And because that experience is difficult, that a lot of people won't be able to experience it because it's too difficult, it's too frustrating for people to get to the end. But I think that there should be experiences like that. And that's kind of how I'm coming at this at the same time. It's just like if everything is accessible to everybody, just there's not a way to do that while also maintaining, in my opinion, an authenticity to a shared experience around somewhere. And hopefully people know I'm not coming out of this saying like I really do believe in having saying accessibility access for like buildings and transportation and most things. But like I said, this is just a trade-off I believe is hard to get around. Like it's how do you build a place where you cannot ruin the authenticity of it, but without catering to the people who'd be coming to, whether it be tourists or other people in general. Let us know your thoughts. I have no hate in my heart. I just yeah.
後で一部の人から焼き殺されるよ。
Yeah, I feel like this might be a hot take. Let me know, is this a hot take?
We're back.
戻りました。
Yep. So, I'm gonna start. So I've been thinking about my future, and today, one of the doctors in the radiology department, was talking about, how do you say, like how to choose which department to work at in the future. Yeah. And it's almost time for us to choose which department to go, because we are in the 5th year and we still have 1.5 years to graduate, but we kind of should decide which department because we have to look for a hospital to work for, and then that hospital should be the one which is good at the department, how do you say, like, which is good at the thing you want to do in the future. So yeah, if I want to do that, I have to decide by now. So yeah, but I think it's kind of hard to choose because I haven't rotated in every department yet. So yeah, that's the thing.
ちなみにその病院を選ぶときは、その病院で一生働くちゃいけないみたいな、習慣とかあるの？
No.
普通の日本の会社どうぞ。
Okay, actually, so we have 初期研修. 初期研修 is like it's kind of different in America. 初期研修 it's 2 years of 初期研修 where we rotate every department, not every, but like major departments. Yeah, there are like set of departments we should rotate in those two in that 2 years, and then after that we finally decide which department to go, and then after that 2 years it's 後期研修, and then where we specialize in one department. So yeah, that's like 5 years of that. Yeah, 5 years
でも
of
その、後期研修の時、その自分が働きたい専門を選ぶ時、その一つの病院を選ばなくちゃいけない。例えば他の日本の会社、企業だと一つの会社に入ってるとその会社でずっと働くちゃいけない、期待がある。なんか、本当にそうではないけど、なんかわかる ?30 年、この会社で働きましたとか、一生、この会社は私の命みたいな、そういうことは日本の医者の業界だと同じ。
Yeah, that's ideal. But, you know, like, but like for 後期研修 where we take, how do you say, like, exams for, like, 専門医 like specialize in one department. We have to take that exam. But until like you pass that exam, I guess you should stick to one hospital. But after that, you can work at that hospital or leave that hospital to like open up your own clinic or just move to another hospital. But
でも、どうぞ。
For residency, you have to complete the program they provide.
でも他の病院にいたとしたら、その病院は、この人はダメだったみたいなことを考えちゃうの。
Nah, not really if you complete the program. Like between, so there's
いや、そうじゃなくて、もしかしてそのプログラム一応コンプリートできて、一つの病院をなんか5年間ぐらいずっと働いていて、でもその時、じゃあ他の病院になんか行ってみたいなと思って、他の病院に行ったら、その病院は、この人はダメだったから、ここに来たというイメージがある。
No. I guess people don't think that way. Because it's,
なんかわかるなぜ私、この質問を聞いてるの。
Yeah, I know. But like some people just like move to another hospital because of like marriage, for example, or like life changes. Yeah, so people don't think that you failed because you failed, you moved to another hospital. Yeah. So
でも他の業界だとこういうような考え方あるでしょ。なんか普通の伝統的な。
Yeah, kind of, tenshoku is like, if you tenshoku too much, then that it's like a, how do you say, red flag. You know, if somebody has a lot of job histories, then like some people suspect like, oh, this person is not like, you know, this person might have problems. Maybe that's why they move like, like so many times.
そのことに関してはいつも思うのは、なんか人生はいろいろな、なんていうか、学ぶべきで、学ぶべきというか、学んでよかった。これは絶対面白い。自分が他のなんか試したらすごく喜ぶものがたくさんある。でもそれなのに、その社会は、一つのことをしないとダメみたいな、その専門、なんか経済は専門の、なんていうか、みんなは専門してるだから、できてる。経済は、こういう人はずっと医者で働いてて、この医者じゃなくて一つの専門だけをやっている。それだからこそ、みんながそれぞれの業界でエクスパートがいるというわけ。でも、私みたいな人はそういうことが非常になんか嫌で、その5年間一つのことを続くと、他のことをやりたいと、いうか、1ヶ月間だけでも、こういうことをやってると、これも面白いかな、これもやってみたいかな、という、考え方とか、私以外の人、あいみは、
that's what I wanted to talk about. So like, I guess I don't remember which episode I talked about this, but like, orthopedics. I want to go to orthopedics, but it's not 100%. It's like 50%. Yeah. And even if I decide to go to orthopedics, there are subspecialties under that. So you can specialize in knee replacement surgery, or like hip joint surgeries or something like that, or even like hand doctor. They just like do hand surgeries. And the thing is, patients, they look for specialists, right?
So
they want high quality. So that means I should do exactly the same thing for the rest of my life. And I have to decide what to do at this age, at like in my 20s, or in my 30s, what to do for the rest of my life. So me personally, I get bored so easily. I can't stick to one thing, so just like Joey. So my ideal is to see or like do surgeries like the whole body, like not like one specific part of the body. So I don't know, like, so yeah, that's what I have to consider. Yeah.
最近面白い情報を聞いた。それが、いろんな医者がいますと、もちろん。で、その初心者と、なんていうか、経験のある人がもちろんたくさんいる。でも、その失敗率に関しては、失敗率というのは、何でしたっけ？どういう定義があったかわからないけど、ある結果によると、その初心者の方が失敗しにくい、その医者の業界の中で。なぜかというと、その初心者、その勉強してからすぐ医者になった人はめっちゃ注意している。その失敗したくない、こういうことをやっちゃダメ、間違いしたくないという考え方をしてるから、あんまり失敗しない。でも、その経験のある人は、そういうことを持ってないから、その自信を持ってるわけ。で、そんなことを持ってるからこそ、経験があるんだけど、その経験は自信に影響を与えて、失敗しやすい。その初心者と比べると。そういうポッドキャストで聞いた話だから、その専門、なんか一生同じこと、This is a factually podcast.
Okay.
So factually. で、一つのことをやってるだけで、それはいいことなのかなと思った。ね、この本当にいい結果に導いてくれるみたいな。
Was it? Okay, let me ask you. So you were an athlete, right? In college. Do you want a coach with a long experience as an athlete himself, or a beginner?
それ、陸上に関しては難しい質問。なぜかというと、イベントによって、例えば、その、100メートルとかは、今までの、なんか、よく走れるってことは、いいコーチになるとは限らない。なぜかというと、その、100メートル以下の距離だと、ほぼ、いや、私は生まれてから速かっただけ、みたいな人は多いから。わかる
？Okay, let's say. Okay, gymnastics.
でもわかる。言ってることわかる。でも、場合によって違うかな。これは多分、イノベーションと経験の話、今の話は。どれだけ、ずっと同じことをすると、そのパターンになれちゃう。でも、なんか、何の業界でもそのイノベーションが大事でしょ？でも、イノベーションは、
Typically, people want experienced people as mentors or like people like for doctors.
いや、わかる。そう、わかるけど、なんか、何の業界でもそのイノベーションは必ずしも、一つなんか経験のある人から
とは限らない。
なんかそう。なんか全然経験、っていうか少ない経験のある人は、この他の業界からの経験をこの業界に入れるんじゃないみたいな人がいる。で、それも大事と言ってる。なんかわかる？それで、難しい質問。どれだけ、経験を重ねると、それは逆影響を与える。みたいな。でもとにかく、
I want to know what you guys think, and I want to know how you guys decide your future. Yeah.
And we're back with the final section. And if you made it to the final section, that means send an email to lazyfluency@gmail.com with a comment, question, language related, and or otherwise. And this week, apparently there was a comment, but I couldn't find it. It said there's like 2 comments on YouTube, but but I can't actually find it. So instead, I want to talk about something that I've been thinking about this morning, and I tried out, I think, yesterday, and it seems to be working to some degree, which is thumbnails. So the main channel, obviously, videos have thumbnails, and I'm currently considering, actually not really considering, I've decided that I'm going to basically be remaking every single thumbnail on the main channel videos. I've already changed two, and they're slight adjustments, but it's a thought I've been having about basically just taking a look at other thumbnails and how important thumbnails really are into bringing people to the video.
一番最初に見るのがさ、やっぱりスクロール、なんていうの、レコメンデーションとか出てくるじゃん、その YouTube だとさ。
Yeah.
サムネイルってすごいよね。やっぱりそれ人間のさ、特性を掴んでる感じがあってさ、面白いんだけどさ、なんか、言っちゃえば一目惚れみたいな感じよね。その、サムネイルで一目惚れしてクリックするみたいな。
Yeah. Thumbnails are always one of the things that is like it's not just a YouTube thing, but I think it is like a very YouTube problem or like thing because other platforms like TikTok don't really have them. They just choose a face, random face. And people can somehow make the thumbnail from that. But I feel like YouTube is the one platform where it's like, oh no, the platform is thumbnails. Obviously, there's like the content of your video and your title, which is like connected to that as well. But it's just like I just changed like one. It was like the book off video. Just changed one thumbnail immediately. Just slight alteration, and it's like impressions go up, views go up, and I'm like, it was that easy? You just had to change the thumbnail a little bit. And so yeah, if you notice over the week, you're like that the thumbnails slightly change or majorly change.
たまたまじゃなくて。たまたま impression.
No, because I literally, this is the day I changed the thumbnail, and it just goes like the line goes up. I'm like, but the other thing I was finding interesting is like, especially because I watch a bunch of different channels, as you know, relating back to the middle section, my interests are varied. It's interesting to me like what kind of thumbnails work in different, I guess industries or sectors of YouTube, and always me deciding like what to draw inspiration from, because there's always a balance, and I feel like this is the YouTube thing where you have like there's a content you want to create and there's a way you want to put your content, and then there's the fundamentally is the realities of the algorithm and how it recommends it and how people on YouTube are used to seeing it, and how really there's no objectively correct thumbnail because it heavily depends on your market and like the type of people you're trying to attract and balancing how you want to make it. Because I was thinking about one thing that's like really big with current thumbnails and is like just very super simple things being super simple and easy to read. And I don't want to conflate that with clickbait, but I was talking to you about Japanese thumbnails. And how can you describe Japanese thumbnails? How would you describe Japanese thumbnails?
最近っていうか、日本のさ、
It doesn't just have to be YouTube.
見ないからあれなんだけど、印象的には、やっぱり日本の YouTubers は、そのビデオの中でよく字幕、でかい字幕があるんだよね、下に。で、サムネイルも字は大体入ってるね。あと、でかい顔とか、ちょっと大げさな、表情とかね。でもそれをなんかミスター・ビーストも大げさな、なんていうの、表情はしてるからさ、それは別になんかどの国っていうか、日本特有ではないっていうか。
Hold up. Mr. Beast thumbnails almost exclusively have no text though. That's like a thing. It's like his things
まあそうね、確かに。
They evolved into more like larger set
言おうとしようかわかる、そのなんか、ちょっとエグザジュレーティングしてるってことなんかとかそのちょっとわかる
Yeah, but I wouldn't really compare. I think they're very similar to anything. In my opinion, like Japanese thumbnails are an overload of information. There's like text everywhere. There's things going on, objects everywhere. Especially like if you've ever seen like anime covers that have a lot of different characters. There's like 50 characters. They're all like all over the background, and it's like. Sorry, go ahead.
タイトルも長いよね。なんか、ラノベとかさ、タイトル長いじゃん。で、サムネもだいたいタイトル長い。映画の名前もタイトルが長いっていう、なんか長いのが好きですね、ちょっと。
Yeah. That's another thing. What is it? What was the title?
カールおじさん
The
と空飛ぶ家カールおじさんのか空飛ぶ家
yeah, that's a great example of that, which is the
Up
which is Up. Yeah, so Up is the English title. and
レ
then
ミ
can
ー
you
と美味
repeat
しい
the
レストラ
Japanese
ン
title again? Oh, that one infuriates me so
レミー
much.
のか
So, Ratatouille, such like it's an actual dish. It's a pun that a rat's making it. Clever title, and then
ね
in
そ
Japanese
れ
is
はね
Remy's.
難しいよ
Remy doesn't even talk about the rat. Just talks about the
レミ
dude. The
レ
whole
ミーって
point.
あれだよネズミの名前じゃん
Oh, was it? Was it Remy?
確かそうだった
Okay, I
気
can't
がする
remember.
多分
Okay, maybe no, you're right, might be it. But it's just like, but the people watching don't know who Remy is, right?
まあまあまあ確かにね
Yeah, Remy's Tasty Restaurant. But anyways, but that's apparently what sells. Apparently, what think people sell and sells. And in my head, there's like always a battle I'm having, which is like my inherent cynicism towards. I don't know how to say this in a nice way. Towards the average viewer, in terms of especially when cause I'm saying I necessarily dislike Mr. Beast content, but it's like not for me. I like the money content is kind of how I'd put it in. I think he's done some stuff that's pretty cool, but to me, like the point of his videos is like, look how much money went into the production, or look how much money is being exchanged or is at play in the movie. Like that's the point. That's like the marketing. Get this Ferrari, get $50,000, money, and it's like taking in my head. It's like, and obviously, cool dude. I think he does a lot of cool stuff, charity, whatever. But I just think as a viewing his content and seeing how incredibly successful it is, it goes like, it feels to me, and this is something a comedian pointed out, but I had this thought, which was Lewis Spears, Australian comedian, which was like this sort of content is something that can only exist in a country with this much inequality, and he says like in Australia, you could do this, but people would just be like, hey, like, what are you doing giving me money? I'm fine. Like, like you might make more money than me, but I'm okay. But in America, you have places where people are homeless on the street and then simultaneously also have hundreds of millions of dollars, not billions, in the same location, which allows you to have a huge body of people being like, I really want to escape poverty. I really, my life would be so much better if I had money. And because of that, you're able to see the success of the marketing content that basically just says, imagine if you were one of these people that had money. And so to me, that's like the kind of, although I do think there's some stuff, like good stuff that Mr. Beast does as well, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like the inherent value of the content doesn't exist in a society where there's more like, equality of like money distribution. And so obviously that's a little like a tangent to just like making thumbnails, but all this idea of my current thumbnail thoughts kind of brought up a bunch of intrinsic cynicism. I feel like that many creators, I'm not going to use, I don't know, artists or whatever, people who want to express themselves in some way end up feeling where they have to balance between what they realistically believe is what will get more clicks or viewership or like the content of their videos. So go ahead.
もうさ、このポイントに来たらさ、真っ白のバックグラウンドにちょっと文字をやるみたいなぐらいがさ、ちょっと画期的でいいんじゃない？
Well, that's interesting. Is it's there's a balance, and obviously I have a lot of thoughts, and I don't think
みん
I've
な
perfected
と
it.
同じだとさ、やっぱダメなんだよ。これもさ、あれだけど、さっきのミドルセクションと同じだけどさ、みんなと同じことやんない、スペシャルティにしないとさ。
That's the balance. That's the balance, right? So I'm trying to find that balance. And I will say that part of the journey in finding learning from other people, I do feel like I'm starting to get a better sense of it. And then somewhere within there is like, some essence of my style that I think that carries throughout. Yeah, I definitely is an interesting learning process. And it also part of me wonders, like, right, this is a large part of this is a YouTube thing, and every platform has their version of how you need to market or use stuff on their platform, which always makes me question, like, are these incentives that like people want to click on really intrinsic to the people, or is it the the things that are being preferred by the given algorithms, and you know what I'm saying, like there are different ways to package your content based on whatever you're doing. And that shows, and all these different companies thinks that this is in their best interest to get money, whatever, that's true. This is what they think maximizes their profit. But because they're different in every platform, to me, it shows like, couldn't you make a platform that actually incentivizes a certain type of content? There's some like platforms like Nebula, which do this, where it's a creator-owned platform, and you don't have
Nebula.
to worry as much about, I'm not like a Nebula creator, just to be clear. Yeah. So, and they run off a subscription model, and they do some other stuff to try to subvert kind of the incentives. But these are a lot of thoughts. I don't know if you found this interesting for people who aren't interested in creating stuff, but you know, it was on my mind. And do you have any other thoughts? These are
Nah.
Okay. Well, these are my thoughts this week. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, send an email to lazyfluency@gmail.com if you have any comment, question, language related, and or otherwise, and also drop a comment on YouTube. Apologies if somebody actually did leave a comment and then it got erased by the YouTube gods.
あ、そうなんだ。
I don't know. It just says 2 comments, but I only see 1 comment, so I don't know what to do.
確かに。
My math tells me that 2 means there are 2, but
Yeah.
I don't know. That bell means we reached the end of today's episode. Thanks for joining us, another lazy conversation towards fluency. If you have any language-related questions and are just looking for general advice, send an email to lazyfluency@gmail.com and we might respond in the next episode. Also, make sure to check out our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and more. We'd appreciate the support. This has been Joey.
And Yummy.
Signing off. Janet.
Janet.
Apologize for the cricket noises if they're still in here, even after my editing.